Just recently got into government contracting field and I'm looking for the best way to navigate it. Hey guys, welcome to the DOD Contract Academy podcast. This is a special episode because here we are going to basically play back a Q&A I did live on YouTube. We're going to cover a lot of great things here today from people that are on contract, people that are looking to win their first government contract, from people that are interested in consulting in the government space as a profession. Take a look at the show notes to find some of the different subject matter areas we're going to cover. As always, thanks again. Check out our YouTube channel. It's growing. It's at DOD Contract Academy. So without any further ado, here is the Q&A. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about where to start. We've got a variety of videos out there that you can access, which walk through the different tools you can use that are free to start doing some of the analytics that I'm talking about. So what I recommend is starting with a website called USAspending.gov. USAspending.gov is a free analytics site. And when you go into it, you can search through what the government is awarding. So I would recommend that the first place to start is not with building a website, starting a business, doing all of this stuff. The first place to start, hopefully you already have a business, but the first place to start is to see if the government buys what you sell. If the government doesn't buy what you sell, then you shouldn't be selling to the government, right? Now the government buys almost everything, like everything you could think of. I did a fun little reel or whatever you call them, the short on YouTube, going over how much the government spent on comic books in the last 3 years.
It's a normal Tuesday in Washington, D.C., but for Uncle Sam, it's time to go shop. For comic books? That's right. Over $20 million of your taxpayer money spent on comic books. They buy everything you can think of, even comic books.
They spent, it was something ridiculous, like 20 million bucks in comic books, right? That's actually a really low spend from the government. Usually we're talking about tens, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, for things like construction, accounting. But so I start with USA Spending and I want to see first, does the government buy what I sell? You can look that up by keyword. It's not as good as looking it up by a NAICS code, NAICS. It stands for North American Industry Classification Code. The government basically categorizes spending into under different numbers. And it's not perfect, but it's good enough to just see, does the government buy what I sell? Now, once you do that, what will happen is if you find an NAICS code, or there's another code called product service code that you can look up, which is a little more targeted. It'll show you how much spending per year that the government is spending. And now you can take it from there and start looking at, there's so many ways to drill down on the data. But what I recommend is you look at how much you're spending on small business. Because remember, the government has a requirement to put small businesses on contract. So that could be 23 to 25%. A lot of agencies actually exceed that requirement for small business. So you might see in your field something like construction that gets more small business spend. You can also look at it if you're a well-known small business, veteran owned, you can see, hey, these type of businesses, how much is spent on those type of businesses? How does the government buy? So for me, that's the first place to start. Do they buy what you sell? I will also tell you, if you are in the position where you're looking at government contracting and you don't have a business, I would ask you to pause, right? Because I will say this, government contracting is not easy. Government contracting takes a long time. It's not impossible. It can be very lucrative, but 6 to 18 months is a normal timeline for how the government buys. And the reason I'm telling you this is because if you don't have a business, it's going to be a lot harder to sell something to the government. So what I would recommend is if you have a business that's already selling commercially, now go to USA Spending, see if the government's buying what you sell, how much. That's the first place. And then second, you go to SAM.gov. When you see that the government's buying, you get an idea of how they're doing it. You can register your business there. If you don't have a business, now what we have done, we created a certification course because of how many people are interested in government contracting, but don't have a business with commercial sales. And so I'm not telling you to stay out of this field. In fact, I'm telling you, hey, this is actually kind of a blue ocean because there aren't many people that actually understand this process. What you may want to do is consider learning the government contracting process and looking at, there's sales executive jobs that are very lucrative, consulting. You just have to learn a little piece of the government contracting process. It could be the SBIR process or proposals or certifications for small businesses or how to build a roadmap and strategy. These are areas that are very profitable. And because of how much money is spent in government contracting, you can work supporting companies that are already on contract with the government or looking to do that and do very well for yourself. So there's two ways to go there. And by the way, there's so many different areas within government contracting. I'm not going to blanket statement that. I mean, there are things that the government buys where you could just get into it and start selling to them. But typically those are kind of lower priced contracts, commodities, things like that. All right, let me go back to the messages here. Oh, how do you find your niche? So let's say your specialty is accounting services, right? Now, if your specialty is accounting services, one thing that you can do, USA Spending isn't the only website you can use, by the way, to do this kind of research. But as I'm looking through something like accounting has many subcategories, almost every niche does. You're going to have subcategories like tax preparation services or bookkeeping. And you can look at each of the subcategories. This is how we refine the niche and see, first of all, businesses like yours. So if it's a small business, for most of us, that's what it's going to be. How much spending is happening with small businesses within that niche? And in USA Spending, again, you can look and see how many proposals are being submitted per solicitation. There are other websites that can look at an entire NAICS code or PSC code and give you that information as an average, which could save you a lot of time. That's one way to find your niche. Hey, what can you do? What are you selling? What's your specialty? And then within that, think of the subcategories, look at them, analyze the spending and see how much competition there is, right? For accounting, and I'm going to make up these numbers just because I can't share my screen with you. But if I go and I see that tax preparation services and bookkeeping, again, making this number up, let's say there was $100 million a year spent on each of them. But on tax prep services, I see that 45 solicitations are coming in 45 proposals from companies on average are coming in per solicitation. But for bookkeeping, I see that on average 2 or 3. Well, that gives me an indicator that bookkeeping could be a great niche. So that's the first place I start when I'm trying to define a niche. What is the government doing? How much to spend? How much competition? What can I do? And I look at all those different areas.